Hi, I'm Crystal Futrell, K-State's Health and Food Safety Extension Agent for Johnson County. And today I'm going to show you how to work with winter squash. Now, winter squash is available all year long, but it's traditionally harvested in the fall, and it kind of tastes like fall. It's a little sweet, a little earthy, and goes very well with those traditional fall flavors like cinnamon, nutmeg, and apples. Now, a lot of people may think they're hard to cook, but the truth is they're one of the easiest vegetables to prepare, but they do have that tough outer skin that makes them a little difficult to cut. But I'm going to show you some tricks on how to make cutting them a little easier.
Before beginning, always make sure to wash your hands with soap and warm water for 20 seconds before cooking.
When cutting any produce, you want a nice, secure cutting surface, especially with winter squash. Now, most cutting boards will slide around on countertops, so an easy fix for that is take a damp paper towel, lie it under the cutting board, replace your board, and it's nice and secure.
Don't forget to rinse off your squashes too.
Of all the winter squashes, the spaghetti squash is the easiest to prepare and cut if you use a special tool, the microwave.
To begin, cut off both ends of the squash, holding it securely with your non-knife hand and using a wiggling motion with your knife. Next, poke the squash all over with a fork. Place on a microwave-safe plate and cook for 3 minutes. Microwaving makes it easier to cut the squash in half, still using that wiggling motion with the knife. Scrape out the seeds. You can roast these later if you want. Place the squash halves, cut side down with a little water in a baking dish. Then it's back to the microwave to cook on high for 5 minutes. Carefully remove the squash. It's hot. And scrape the spaghetti-like fibers out with a fork. Then drizzle with extra virgin olive oil and sprinkle with Parmesan cheese and black pepper.
And here you have a light yet satisfying spaghetti squash pasta with cheese, pepper, and extra virgin olive oil. Now this is butternut squash, and it's known by its long neck and squatty bottom. So to peel this, the first thing you want to do is to cut off its top and its bottom, and then peel it.
Once peeled, cut off the butternut's squatty bottom, still using the wiggle. Then cut the squatty bottom and long neck in half and remove the seeds with a spoon. Then cut each half into planks, then cut the planks into cubes.
So here we have our cubed butternut squash. Now there's lots of things you can do with this vegetable. You can oven roast it at 425 for about 30 minutes. Just drizzle it with some olive oil, sprinkle some salt and pepper on it. That tastes great. But my personal favorite way to eat butternut squash is to turn it into a soup. And we're gonna do that with the electric pressure cooker. You don't need an electric pressure cooker. You could put it in a pot and cook it on the stove. That's no problem. But we're gonna use this gadget today.
Start the soup by sautéing chopped onions in a little oil. Next, add 2 peeled and chopped apples to the onions. Sprinkle in 1 teaspoon each of salt, coriander, cumin, and a pinch of cayenne pepper. Deglaze the fond at the bottom with a little water, making sure to scrape up those flavorful bits. Then add 2 cups of water and the cubed butternut squash. Close the lid of your cooker and make sure the valve is set at sealing mode. Pressure cook for 5 minutes. Then do a quick release. Make sure the pressure indicator is down before removing the lid. Next, puree the soup with either a stick blender or in batches with a regular blender. Then add in a swirl of heavy cream and a swirl of maple syrup. Stir to combine.
And here you have a warm, comforting bowl of butternut squash soup. Now our last squash is probably the most intimidating squash. It's the acorn squash. It's hard to peel because you have all these ridges and it's really tough, so it's hard to cut. But let me show you a way around that.
Start by slicing off a small piece to create a flat surface. Turning the squash onto that flat surface, cut off the bottom and top using that same wiggling motion. Stick your knife into the middle of the squash and pull the blade down. Do the same thing on the other side, cutting the two halves away. Then scrape out the seeds.
So if you want to peel the acorn squash, this is how you do it. You stand it up on its flat end, grab your knife, and then starting at the top, very carefully, just kind of wiggle your knife in between the skin and the flesh until it's all peeled off. Now the truth is, you don't have to do this. Keeping the skin on actually makes for a great presentation, and it's a lot easier just not to peel it.
Place the squash halves on a foil-lined baking sheet and roast in the oven at 350 degrees for 45 minutes. Plate your squash and top with a little butter, brown sugar, and cinnamon.
And here you have your oven-roasted butternut squash.